Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm Akhi Salam, and all the praise and thanks is for the God Allah, the one and only God whom created everything in existence. And after creating the heaven and hell and the eternal realm of existence, and the earth and the solar system, and time and space, that God Allah exists today as He always has, without a place. So all the places are the creation of the God Allah, which cannot contain God's essence, meaning that God Allah existed before He created the creation. Therefore, after creating the creation, it cannot contain Him. It's a new beginning. It's a new beginning, meaning that it has a beginning. But Allah created His creation to have no end. So He created the uh, creation to be eternal. Although time and space will cease to exist, but the eternal realm of heaven and hell were created for all eternity. And the souls which God has created for mankind and for genkind, their being, although it's unlike man's being and creation, but he created the jinn for eternity, although they will taste uh, taste death like man will taste death. But all the places are the creation of the God Allah and all of the creatures. And the creation cannot contain the God Allah's essence. The creation does not apply to the God Allah. The God Allah is not created. The God Allah had no beginning and has no end. He created the creation which has a beginning but not an end. God created the heaven and the hell and the realm of existence called eternity. God created the realm of eternity, which has a beginning but not an end. So eternity does not apply to the God Allah, meaning that the God Allah existed before He created eternity. Therefore, eternity has nothing to do with the God Allah. It cannot contain Him, that realm of existence. God do not need a realm or a place for Him to exist because He created all places. That's why we say that God Allah exists without a place. God also created the earth and the solar system inside a realm of existence called time and space, which has a beginning and a end. The God Allah exists without a beginning, and everything else outside of Him exists with a beginning. The God Allah created it all, be it among entities, their characteristics, every movement, every thought, every intention, every action or saying were all created by the God Allah. The God Allah created all of the abilities that His created beings can do, as well as His created places. and everything inside those places and all their functions. God brought all the creation from the state of non existence into the reality of existence. The God Allah is the only one that creates like this. If a person hit a glass window with a stone and broke it, then the act of hitting and breaking were created by the God Allah. The person only does the created act in which they will be rewarded according to the intention of the good or bad deed, rewarded with heaven for good deeds and rewarded with hell for the bad deeds. Forever and always. The eternal realm will exist for all forever and for always. The eternal heaven and the eternal hell, whichever you are uh, sentenced to, heaven or hell, for your good and bad deeds. That is the purpose of this life. That's the purpose of this earth, for this moment in time, to see what the human being loves to do. Does the human being love good or love bad? Does the human being love hate, or does the human being love to show love? Does the human being believe in God and the guidance, or does the human being disbelieve in God and the guidance? Every person's intention, desires, inclinations, thoughts, and any changes in them are created by the God Allah. The God Allah gave his human beings power over one thing, and that's the power to make a choice. Although human beings have the power of choice, the God Allah created the action of thought and all other things in which the brain can think of doing. And of course, the action of choice to decide. That's the one power we have, a free will to do what thou wilt, or to submit to the will of God but with the guidance. And to do what thou wilt is the religion of the devil. The devil wants people to do whatever they want to do, whatever comes to mind, without obeying God. That is the Satan's religion, to do what thou wilt, do whatever you want. And the religion of God is to submit to the guidance in which he has sent down, to be guided, to have rules, laws, and regulations to be governed by. And those laws and the guidance are found in the Quran. And before that, it was found in the Injil, the book that was revealed to Jesus. And before that, the Torah, the book that was revealed to Moses. And before that, the Psalms, the book that was revealed to David. And before that, the Suhuf, the book that was revealed to Ibrahim. Peace be upon all those prophets. And all those prophets which I just mentioned were confirmed in the Quran, along with the books that were revealed to them, the Injil to Jesus. His name is Isa, but the Europeans named him Jesus, an English word. And Prophet Dawood, but the English people call him David, the English word David. And his book was the Zabur, but they call it the Psalms in English. And they don't mention Abraham's book in the English text, the Bible, King James Version. But the Quran mentions the Suhuf, the purified scriptures, which the God Allah did reveal to Abraham, and his name is Ibrahim in the Quran. And the Quran is the last book of guidance in succession of the prior books, which the Quran does confirm and mention that God is one and the religion is one, and those prophets were all of the same bloodline, which did proceed from Abraham's loins, and they were referred to as the children of Israel, which Israel was Jacob, who was the son of Isaac, whose Isaac is the son of Abraham. And Abraham's firstborn son was Ishmael, who was not of the children of Israel, but they were of the same bloodline. And that's who Prophet Muhammad came from. His bloodline, Ishmael's. So therefore, the prophethood proceeded forth from one family, from Abraham. Ibrahim, peace be upon him. And that is the covenant that God had with Abraham and his offspring, the children of Israel, and Ishmael and Prophet Muhammad, that he will send them the guidance for all mankind through the scriptures, and they will be chosen as the prophets who God will communicate the guidance to, so that they can take it to the rest of the world to be guided. And so it's one bloodline of prophethood, and religion is one. There is no two or three religions. Religion is one, which is Islam, which means to submit to the will of God. And to go against Islam, to do what thou wilt, to do whatever you want to do, which is the devil's religion. So the God Allah created the power of choice for his human beings and jinkind. The God Allah mentioned in the last book of guidance, the Quran, that there is no other God but He. The God Allah mentioned in his last book of guidance that He was the only God, and that He was alone without any partners or associates in His Godhood. So after creating the creation, God revealed His power and greatness. For the first time, there was created beings like angels, jinn, and men who called upon God's names and attributes with sounds. Speaking with sounds was a newly created thing. So to say the God Allah, or to say God, or to say Allah, or to say Jehovah, or Yeshua, was the first time that had been done. And God had been existing way before that. So just think about that. Ponder on that. So God is not those names, are not those names. They were created things for us to call upon Him, to refer to Him. And we can only think of things from a human being's perspective. That's the limited knowledge that God has given us. When God created us, He did not give us all the knowledge. We don't know a morsel seed. We only know a morsel seed of what God knows. God has withheld a tremendous, insurmountable amount of knowledge from us. We don't know it all. Okay? But speaking with sounds, and writing and saying letters that combine into words and when pronounced make sounds was a newly created thing, which does not apply to the God Allah. Counting numbers or numerals is a newly created thing that do not apply to the God Allah. Anything that the created being does is a newly created thing that does not apply to the God Allah. All of all of a human being's thoughts are a newly created thing. The human being can only think about what the God Allah has ordained for it to think about. The God Allah did not give human beings all of the knowledge. Human beings can only think about and compare and reference things from a human being's perspective. Human beings cannot imagine nothing other than a man or a woman and whatever is on this earth. We cannot create anything in our minds that is not of this earth. Therefore, we have no creative imagination. We cannot create things. Only thing we could think of is other human beings. The God Allah has blessed his human beings by creating the world and everything in it, and only allows his precious human beings to enjoy whatever is on the earth. He gave his human beings dominion over the earth. And all that God Allah requires is that we worship him alone without worshiping anything in the creation, anything on the earth, because there's nothing else that we could worship other than God, the God Allah, but another human being or an idol which is made out of a wooden to create a statue or concrete or cement or something that we can make from the earth. That's the only thing we can associate as a God to the creator, the God Allah. So there is nothing else that a human being can worship unless it's a material substance found on this earth, which in essence are all gifts from the God Allah that he created for us. So do not worship the God Allah only is to deny. So not to worship the God Allah is only to deny the very purpose for which you were created, and that's showing ingratitude to the God Allah, and puts his servant or his created being, which you are in turn a servant, because he only created us so that we worship him and praise and thank him, and that's gratitude towards him. And to not worship the God Allah puts the servant in the state of denial and rejection to the God Allah and cuts off his mercy, which will then incur his wrath, his punishment for all eternity in the hellfire, because you are not deserving to go to heaven for all eternity, because you turned your back on your creator, the God Allah, and just chose to just enjoy all the gifts and the bounties that he has created for us on the earth, and did not praise and thank him and worship him. That's the purpose for us being here, to praise and thank him, to show gratitude and to worship him, and to die being the grateful servant and believing in the heaven and the hell. Therefore, you will fear going to the fire for all of eternity, and you will hope for the eternal heaven. So therefore you will be a believer, and you will get God's mercy. But if you are a disbeliever, you will incur his wrath for all eternity. If the human being does not use the intelligence that the God Allah has created him with to come to realize how truly blessed and anointed the purpose for his human beings is, or choose ignorance and choose God's wrath and brought to a lowly state in this world and the world to come, blessed with all the faculties that coincide the human being, that give the person functionality on the inside and the outside of their bodies. That God Allah has created his precious human beings in such a way that it should make it plain to the human being in itself that they were created by a divine and powerful creator. Take, for instance, the five senses, like hearing with the ears, seeing with the eyes, smelling with the nose, tasting with the tongue, and feeling with the entire body. These are some amazing functionalities that all work together simultaneously without any effort or awareness from the human being that these functions are taking place. The human being did not create these functions for themselves, nor do they control how they work within the mechanics of the different components. Human beings are not in control of their hearts beating or of the blood that's flowing through their veins, not in control of their lungs breathing in invisible air, in and out and in. And have human beings ever asked the question, why do my lungs need to keep breathing this invisible air? And what exactly does the air contain that makes me need it to live? And what happens inside of my lungs when this air is breathed in? And what about my kidneys? How do my kidneys take the toxins out of my food so that it doesn't get in my blood, and then my blood urinates it out? I mean, and then my body urinates it out, and how the liver filters and helps excrete toxins, toxic waste out of the body. We have no control over these bodily functions, and yet it all works simultaneously in congruence with each other without no help from the power that he has given us of the power of choice. We have no control over these other bodily functions. These are just a few internal bodily functions that the human being did not create, nor do they control the mechanics of how these organs work. And let's look at the skeleton. That is the internal frame and structure of the body, the inner core of the bone called the bone marrow, and how it keeps the bones healthy and strong. All the different cells that's inside the body, the muscles, the fat tissue, inside the ear, the eardrum system, the eyeball, the retina and iris, the pupil, and how it dilates in the light and in the darkness. These are some These are some out of many bodily functionalities and complexities of how the human body were created and constructed by the God Allah. Are there are there so many, and there are so many more bodily functions which make up the human beings, which is proof enough that the human beings are created and that they have no control over their bodily functions. They are just in control of the power of making a choice, which the God Allah did give them control over. In the name of the God Allah, the compassionate, the merciful, the God Allah mentioned in his last revealed book, the Holy Quran, that he only created the Alameen, and that is his three beings, the angels, the jinn, and men, is for the purpose of worshiping him. So the human being is always in a state of worship, always in the state of adoration, always is focused on an object of desire, of wanting and possession, of making an object of more importance than himself. So human beings is always into pursuit of showing reverence and adoration towards created things that captures their attention and excites in them the desire of possession. Human beings are always in a state of wanting something that's the object of their fascination. Human beings are in a persistent state of infatuation and possession, either for materialistic substances like money, cars, big houses, clothes, food, or that of the flesh, pursuing a relationship with another human being. So being infatuated or having a possession and desire and wanting to possess a person, place, or thing is basically the root of worshiping. So the reason why the God Allah created us is true. He only created the Alameen, that's the angels, jinn, and men, is for worship. So whether a human being is worshiping the creation or the creator, the God Allah, the human being are in a constant pursuit of worshiping for their whole entire existence. So human beings and the jinn kind must learn to distinguish the creator, the God Allah, from his creation. Human beings and jinn kind must come to realize the blessings of the gift from the God Allah. That the God Allah created a wonderful, beautiful world in which his beloved human beings and jinns get to enjoy in and in return we focus all of our worship to the God Allah and praise and thank the God Allah only for his countless blessings that the God Allah has bestowed on all of his precious human beings and jinn kind and the angels. But the angels, they submit. They do not disobey God. So this dialogue here, I'm referring it to the men and the jinn because the jinns are listening because they can't read. They have to be guided from the Quran and they can only hear it from us. So they have to follow us, the Muslim jinn. And you have those satanic jinn who do what thou wilt. Okay? Okay, so I did not mention the angels because they were not given the power to disobey and deny the God Allah. They naturally worship the God Allah and they praise and thank him for creating them and giveth them countless bounties and blessings. It's only the jinn and men who has been given the power to obey or disobey the God Allah with free will. And that is to submit to the God Allah or to do what thou wilt. The religion of the devil. The religion of the God Allah on earth and in the heavens is Islam, which simply means submit to and obey the God Allah, which can be found in the Quran, the guidance, the rules, laws, and regulations from which we will be judged by on the day of resurrection. Okay? And Islam simply means submit to and obey the God Allah. And the one who does this is called a Muslim. The one who obeys God, the God Allah, is a Muslim in action. The word Muslim is a derivative of Islam. Muslim is Islam in action. We ask the God Allah to keep us resolute in our faith and worship to the God Allah and to the God Allah only and not the creation. We do not put the creation over the giver, the God Allah. We do not put the gifts over the giver. And that the God Allah protects his worshippers from what he fears for them. And that is the eternal hell fire. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I'll give you the greetings of peace, blessings, and the mercy of Allah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Allah Akbar.